Yeah. There we go. Walking backwards.
Good morning. Good morning, Timothy. Good morning, everybody who is watching us now live. We're talking about Japanese politics again today, and this is the 251st episode of Japanese Politics One-on-One with Timothy Langley, the CEO of Langley Squire, government relations agency in downtown Tokyo, and me as host Maya Matsuoka. Timothy, good morning, and thank you for being here once again this morning.
Do I have a choice, Maya?
I guess you don't, but I still appreciate that you show up every morning, Sunday morning.
But
yes.
thanks for pretending like I do.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, yes, all right. So
move on to it.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Could you
Thank you
please?
very
Yes.
much. Okay, so yes, thank you. I'm reporting, as you can tell, from below decks on the good ship Grimm's. Grimm's, people have asked me before, it's named after a mythical creature, a dog that is guarding the gates of hell in North mythology. So Grimm's is a name that comes from a very long tradition of Norse mythology. And she's 51 years old, and I'm broadcasting from the inside cabin. So thank you very much for joining me. The weather is nice, completely blue skies, but it's easier for me to broadcast here. We had a short week this last week, Maya. You remember Monday was a national holiday because of Labor Day. And the prime minister was in Johannesburg. So 2 days spent flying only. It's 24 hours from Tokyo to Johannesburg and 2 days there. So of this 4-day work week, 4 of those days were spent in or traveling to Johannesburg. So it's been very busy for her, an insane travel schedule and work schedule. And you've got to give her a bit of credit. The amount of tension and pressure that's being put on her in her first month in office is just incredible. I think she's doing a marvelous job. I think a lot of other people think so too. The China-Japan spat continues. It's toned down just a little bit, but there's a little bit of a backwash there. I want to get into that in more detail as we get into the details of the briefing. The yen is at around 156. It was at 157 last week, a 1 yen difference in just 7 days. And there's reasons for that. I'd like to get into it. There's been some serious cyber attacks, Maya, over this last week. Osgold, which is the office supply, you call them up. They have that big, thick catalog. Most of the companies use them. They were completely shut down from a cyber attack. There were a couple of others going on. And the 3 members of Ishin, you might remember, we reported on this. Ishin had a little bit of a mini coup, and they kicked out 3 guys because they weren't towing the line. These guys wanted Ishin to be a little bit closer to the LDP, and the leadership of the LDP said, no, you guys need to toe the line. And they said, no, we don't want to toe the line. They said, well, get the hell out. They kicked them out, and these 3 members just joined the LDP on Thursday. So that changes the dynamics. Ms. Takaichi is no longer the leader of a minority government. She now has a majority in the lower house. The upper house is a different deal, but would like to get into that. So let me just get into those details so that we can wrap this up and get into the Q&A. Maya, I understand you're on a short schedule today too. So back to you.
Yes, thank you, Timothy. Yes, and to everybody once again, thank you for joining us.
Turn your mic on.
My mic is on. Okay, my mic is on. I'm sorry. Yes, maybe you cannot hear me, but I am talking and everybody hopefully can hear me. So thank you for joining us. And we are here every Sunday morning at 8:20, and we live stream actually these briefings on YouTube, and then on LinkedIn and Facebook. So thank you for joining us again, and please let us know that you have been here, that
Can you hear
have.
me, Maya?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. I hope that everybody else can hear you. Please let us know if you can hear me as well. Yes, so everybody can hear both of us. Wonderful. All right. And so, yes, subscribe, like, leave your comments and thoughts, and we're moving to the Q&A session. Timothy, it's over to you again.
Maya, I'm not hearing you.
Please go on. Yes.
I think I need to fix that. We were on just earlier. I didn't touch anything.
Yes, please continue. Okay.
Well, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should sign off and then sign back on in.
No, please continue. Go on. Go on. Okay, apologies to everybody. Yes. Okay, so Timothy obviously wants to fix this because he's, he wants to hear everybody who says anything, especially me, because I'm going to convey all the questions and the comments that we receive here. Please forgive us for this. Hopefully, yes, he's back now. Let us see how this is resolved. Can you hear me now, Timothy?
I can hear you now. I don't know what happened there,
Wonderful.
Maya.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sometimes it happens. And
catch me up to what you
yes,
talked to
please.
everybody about.
I did the housekeeping. And
Okay.
now it is over to you. Let's go into the details.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So the Prime Minister was in Johannesburg for the G20 this last week. She was there on Sunday and Monday. So when we were reporting, she was already in Johannesburg. That took on till Monday and then flew back on Tuesday. She was back Wednesday morning, I believe. But it's just really a murderous schedule that she's been on. But 18 hours each way from Narita to Johannesburg. That's a great schedule. But she met with Trump. She met with Xi. She met with the global South leaders. And this was, the host was South Africa in any event. A lot of the discussion was going on, where Japan is, China, how they're going to help with the debt relief that Africa is suffering under. And of course, China was there giving, their spiel. With regard to Trump, there was a little bit of diplomacy going on there. A telephone call that happened between Trump and Xi earlier or later in the week. But her meeting with Xi, just very perfunctory, was very cool and formal. China continues to press Japan to walk back on the Taiwan contingency comments and to reaffirm a strategic military beneficial relationship with China. And in order to do that, they're kind of ratcheting down on some of the economic levers that they hold. And Africa and the ASEAN leaders, they're really looking to Japan to sell itself as a reliable partner on infrastructure, on climate, and on security. And not a debt trap, but kind of, diplomacy by checkbook. That's what they're really looking forward to. And there's quiet competition going on, as you can imagine, between China's Belt and Road Initiative, ports, rail, and power, and digital infrastructure. And so Japan and the other G20 members there's a controversy and a kind of a battleground going on there. At the same time, it was a huge volcanic explosion that took place in Ethiopia, in the Halagubi volcano that hasn't erupted for 12,000 years. This is a huge event because the pumice and the volcanic overflow carries off towards the east, and that's where a lot of the breadbasket is. So it's a huge disruption there, disrupting flights as well, as you can imagine. But it really kind of keys off of the G20 and the Africa Summit that the resiliency of South Africa and Africa in general, they need debt relief. There's a lot of controversy going on there, and they're looking for the members of the G20 to come in and help them with these kinds of disasters, and also just the conflict and the war that continues to go on there. So there's a real battleground, the global South, between the Western countries and China and Russia and the other countries as well. But back to Tokyo, she had a really packed schedule, 2 days. of diet sessions, Wednesday, Thursday, talking about the stimulus package. They were able to pass the largest stimulus package in maybe 20 years, 25 years. There was a stimulus package during COVID. This one wasn't as big as that, but this one is a huge one, and it passed through the lower house. It'll be passed in the upper house later this week. This comment of her saying that she's sleeping only 2 hours an evening, it doesn't mean that due to the pressure of the office, that's her normal pattern. She only sleeps like 2 hours. So she's coming across as kind of an iron woman, this branding that's going on with her, but she really is, towing up to the challenge that she's given in her work style. And I think she's going to have a real dynamic administration. There are only 17 days left now. Tomorrow is Monday. It's a new majority. It's a new day for the LDP. There are still things that they need to do, that the Diet needs to do. But there are things that they were able to do. So they approved the $21.3 trillion stimulus package. So that's the largest since COVID. And it's the biggest initiative for the Takaichi cabinet right now. So it's 17.7 trillion in the supplementary budget to finance, the economy, and to get the economy going back, and to reduce the price of inputs and oil and gasoline and foodstuffs. It's just a tremendous thing for her to be able to achieve that. I don't think Mr. Ishiba could have done something similar to that in his, but she is also launching a Japan growth strategy. She launched the headquarters there. She's formed a working group with Ishin, so she's put several of the members into the working group with the LDP to work on tax reform. It's still not done in this session. They want to get it done this session. A tax reform bill for 2026, long-term growth sectors for AI, semiconductors, shipbuilding, defense, GX, and those sort of things. We've been talking about that before. The big news this week, though, was on Thursday night, the 3 ex-Ishin members of parliament joined the LDP, and that restores the majority to the LDP. So you've got the LDP and Ishin. They were short of a majority by 1 vote, and now they've got these 3 new members. So now they have a bit of a hair's breadth of a majority in the lower house, assuming Ishin votes en bloc and the LDP votes en bloc. But this is a big boost, and it must be some consternation for Ishin. They kicked those guys out, and now they have to deal with them. And not only do they have to deal with these 3 individuals, but these 3 individuals coming into the LDP late, you would think they're going to be, they're not going to have the full benefits of full membership, except that they are bringing in something. And there was clearly horse trading going on before they came in, so that maybe they get a little bit of a more preferential treatment than Ishin members would get. So, for example, if there's a shuffling of the government or committee assignments, those sort of things. Interesting thing about these 3 individuals, 2 of them are from the proportional representation list. That means that they were on the list. If you vote for Ishin as the party of choice, then depending on how many votes you get, the number of names on the list gets ticked off. 2 of them were on the Ishin list. They're not on the list anymore. And one of the goals of this administration is to reduce by 10%, the members of the lower house. And the easiest way to do that is to attack the proportional representation block, where 2 of these 3 guys received their seats. 2 of them are just first-term members, so they're really, really relying on this. The other one is Mr. Morishima. He's from Osaka, and he's in a single-seat district. So Ishin is very strong in Osaka. He is bolted from Ishin, so he's also very tenuous too. So these 3 people are really wondering if they're going to be able to continue to be Diet members if there's another election. So maybe it's expediency, maybe it is a conviction, but it's real horse trading at its best here. but it really relieves the LDP. They can now move forward. They can move forward with the stimulus package. They can move forward with the movement on reducing the number of seats. I still don't think it'll pass this session, but there's another session that will start in January. So it's just, the lower house is secure now. The upper house is not, but the lower house generally has more push. So previously, the Ishin and the LDP plus a couple of independents had 230. They were short of 233, and now they've got that with the 3 seats. They restored the outright lower house majority of 233 out of a total of 465 seats. A little bit in the weeds there. I apologize. So this is something that Mr. Ishiba never had in his entire time. He was there almost a full year. He never had a working numerical majority. And so I think this makes we were talking about potentially a no confidence motion being lodged against the prime minister and her administration, or maybe just being not able to achieve what Ishin wanted or demanded from the LDP in order for them to coalesce their forces, and therefore Ishin would bolt. So that's kind of now in the back. The political fragility that we had before Thursday has dissipated. It's not completely disappeared, but it's dissipated completely. So I think these rebels that have joined the LDP, they might face a tough re-election in a new election if there is a closure of the House, or maybe they have to wait 3 years plus a little bit for that term to come to a close. But let's see what else is on the table. There's the supplementary budget that is going to fund the stimulus that needs to pass the upper house. The lower house seat reduction of 10%, that's still kind of iffy. And I think Ishin understands that just the logistics don't accommodate them doing it in this diet session. But I think that they'll be okay with the LDP if they show enough effort to do it in the near term. There have been discussions about lowering the number or about pushing the deadline back, so that there is a little bit of an accommodation or a acknowledgement that what you can do and what you can't do realistically. But I think that the coalition will be a little bit stronger now. And working on the tax reform for 2026, there's coordination between Komeito and the Democratic Party for the People, the CDP, continues on, but they want a tax income tax exemption to be raised, the floor to be raised, and also increase a standard deduction, and also child and low income tax credits, probably that might be actually refundable for childcare. So the Tokyo government has done a great job. Ms. Koike has done a great job in compelling people to have more children, to reduce the costs and the burdens, and the home leave for parents, both parents. That's really leading the charge throughout Japan. Not everybody's following, but I think there are adjustments that are coming. Other people are watching what's going on with Tokyo, but Tokyo is really, if you have a child in Tokyo, child care and prenatal care and yochien, the kindergarten, the prenatal schooling, it's all taken care of by the government. They're doing such a great job that people are moving to Tokyo just in order to have their children and to take care of these benefits. The other thing that's kind of flared up recently, I'm getting a lot of heat on it as well, is the foreign resident and immigration policy. We've told you before that by the end of this year, there's supposed to be a policy pronouncement, and it looks like that has been going on. The prime minister has said we want 0 illegal residents in Japan. They kind of already have that, but I don't know why this has reached such a high level. And I think it might be because of, I don't know, maybe Chinese investment and long-term residents from China coming in. But it's also with regard to others that are coming in and maybe overstaying their visas, that sort of thing. But as everybody knows, there are so few asylum seekers there might be seekers, but they're just not getting awarded an accommodation here. So, but it is, it's getting pretty tough. There are parts of the immigration and the foreign residence policy that it's undergoing review right now. You've probably read it in the newspaper that it's going to be more expensive if you want to apply for permanent residency. And the minister who's overseeing this seems to be a little bit bent on, really coming down hard on the foreigners. This is an outgrowth of the upper house election where San Seito did make a lot of noise and received a little bit of traction by attacking the foreigners and saying that the foreigners are not as favorable as long-term residents in Japan. So I think Japan, the LDP is beginning to capture a little bit of that. Moving on to other things, there are a couple of scandals, and as we've discussed before, scandals and Japanese politics, they go hand in hand. It kind of is an activant. It's a kind of an accelerant for moving Japanese politics. And we're seeing this in real time now. There are 3 or 4 that are undergoing they're suffering from heat right now. Mr. Hayashi Yoshimasa is the Internal Affairs Minister, very popular. He was Foreign Minister. He was Chief Cabinet Secretary. He's a really a real professional politician, very polished, but he's been criticized. Bunshun reported maybe 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, of campaign finance irregularities. And this is a big no in the current environment. Anybody that seems to be pocketing money is going to be attacked and probably successful. It's like, sexual harassment. It's always a winning criticism. And he is in the cabinet. Attacking him really benefits the opposition parties. It shakes her up, and it is of all of the scandal. It's the one that looks like it's got the most traction under it. He is the very person that's overlooking election administration and political finance rules. So this is kind of one that you really want to avoid. We've only got 17 days left in this this session, this diet session, an extraordinary diet session. So it suggests not just with Hayashi, but particularly with Hayashi, that there could be a shifting and maybe a cabinet reshuffle in the new year. The opposition can say, how can Mr. Hayashi referee when he's under investigation, for example? So he seems to be the top candidate for removal in the new year shuffle to kind of release some of that pressure. Also, Mr. Kyuchi Minoru is the economic revitalization minister, and he has a double-edged role. He's the front-facing salesman for responsible fiscal expansion. He had a meeting with the prime minister and the finance minister just this last week, pushing big stimulus, defending long-term growth strategies, for example, AI and semiconductors, all the things we talked about on the stimulus. That's in his bailiwick. And he's been reportedly caught again by Bunshun into past political funding practices. He's simultaneously the architect of the Stimulus and Growth Council and a potential lightning rod of the administration if it needs to show that it takes reform and clean politics seriously. So Hayashi and Kyuchi, they could be, if Madame Takaichi really wants to go forward and say, we are the clean government, all of that stuff that happened in the past, the Abe scandal, that sort of thing, we are not part of that. The LDP is not part of that. She's going to have to take a little bit of an aggressive step forward. The other one is the co-leader of Ishin, Mr. Fujita. The reason this is important is because Ishin is pushing the LDP to do things the LDP doesn't really want to do, but it's holding its nose so that it can keep Ishin close by. If Ishin has a weakness and a chink in the link of its armor, it means that they are not going to be as aggressively pushing the LDP because they're somewhat weakened. And so this issue with Mr. Fujita it's possibly generated by the opposition, but the LDP has a somewhat of a benefit out of it too. And the claim here is over the last 5 years, maybe 21 million yen in revenue has been generated by a printing firm that is run by Mr. Fujita's diet secretary. So the diet secretary is obviously paid by the government. He is an employee of the government, reporting to the diet man and the minister right now. And so he's receiving a salary for running this printing company for the last 5 or 6 years. It's generating a revenue. Is he not getting double dipping? Is he getting a salary, or is that money coming back into the coffers of the diet men? It's is this just a recycle of public funds? The government pays for these printing expenses for the Ishin no Kai, and that money is going back. Is that the way this is going? Once this issue was exposed, has it been stopped? Is it still going on? And Mr. Fujita kind of worsened it by exposing Akahata first announced this. So Akahata is the newspaper of the Japan Communist Party. Selling Akahata throughout the nation is the funding vehicle for the Japan Communist Party. So it's very well written, it's well read, it's highly evaluated. It's coming from the Japanese Communist Party, but it is a highly authentic and sometimes academic newspaper. A lot of people read it. But he reported, he doxed, he actually announced the person who in Akahata was writing this, who first surfaced this. He deleted that, I think it was a tweet maybe, but he deleted it almost a day after he had announced it, but already it looks like he's got dirty fingers, and it's not a good look in any way you look at it. So it could be that not only does the LDP need to go through a little bit of soul searching and a cabinet reshuffle when the diet restarts in January, but unfortunately maybe Ishin has to do the same thing. And this is just, it hasn't been 8 months since Mr. Baba was removed and Mr. Fujita replaced him as the co-leader. So there are things that are going on there that we just need to keep an eye out for. But a reshuffle speculation is high right now, and it could be that these 3 members from Ishin that joined on Thursday, they deserve a little bit of a boost, a little bit of credibility. 2 of them are in the proportional representation, so they're already on the chopping block. The other one comes from a district where his name is the value that got him elected, and now he's not in Ishin anymore. So he could be, viewed as a turncoat. He could be viewed as, all 3 of them could be viewed as just somebody that are not very reliable as politicians. They're just interested in, being elected again. So the LDP might have to do a little bit of back channel work to protect them. So we'll keep an eye on that. Moving on to the economy and the yen. The yen, as I said, closed out at 156.2 on Friday. A wild ride over the week. We closed out at 157.2, almost exactly 1 yen difference from last week. And it's multi-year lows. This is, I don't think it's been since what, maybe 15 years ago that it was at 157. And this swing of 1 to 2 yen, intraday swings, that's a big scary thing for the Ministry of Finance and for the Bank of Japan. The interest rate gap between the United States and Japan remains to be the main motivator of why the yen is at such a weak point right now. So we don't think that the Bank of Japan and the Finance Ministry is going to push for changing the rates, but it does seem to be a pregnant time for Japan to intervene to support the yen. But that is also a double-edged sword too. The trading partners don't like that. The United States, in order for them to do that, the United States would have to be somewhat of a in some agreement for that, and that's unlikely. How this is going to happen for people that live here, the imported foods, energy, and everyday goods are all creeping up in price. You can probably feel this if you live in Japan, if you live in Tokyo particularly. Supermarkets are going through shrinkflation. That means you buy the same product, it's on the shelf at the same price, but the the contents have become smaller, and the adjustments at the grocery store are becoming much quicker too. Foreign overseas travel and trips, they're going to be much more expensive now. And for the exporters, big manufacturers with global supply chains will be receiving bigger profits because they're going to be selling more, since the yen is a little bit weaker, and maybe people will be more purchase conscious, or maybe they'll buy a little bit more than what they need because the prices could get higher later. But many are using the windfall, the big companies, to shore up their margins rather than to slash prices. So that's one of the criticisms that many countries and many people in Japan have against big businesses. Rather than to reap the benefit of revenue infusion, they usually buy back stock, or they storehouse the revenue. They don't distribute it in wages or in dividends to their shareholders. So that's something that continues to go on. You know that the Prime Minister has launched a Doge-like agency to look at prices and how things are spent and how money is being distributed. And part of that comes in here too with the companies. Are they hoarding? Are they sharing the wealth? Are they beginning to distribute it? And that comes into that combination as well. So it's a big deal. And the China crisis comes at a bad time now too, because now that with the fish stocks and some of the revenue that is generated because China buys so much from Japan, and also it has insisted that Chinese travelers stop coming to Japan because Japan is no longer safe for some reason, or it's just not a good place to travel. And it's not that the Chinese people are paying attention to that and they're following it, by the letter. It's just that the Chinese government is reducing the number of flights that are coming in. So even if you really want to come to Japan, the competition for the flights and the schedules and the seats is severely limited now. So I mentioned that Foreign Minister Katayama and Mr. Kiuchi and Bank of Japan Governor Ueda have all met this last week for coordination and probably maybe intervention in the yen if it really becomes excessive. We can't tell right now, but it does look 157 last week, 156 this week. Maybe this next week will be something different. I don't know. We just need to keep our eye on it. But there's a lot going on. And I know, Maya, you've got a short fuse, but there's just so much going on. The stimulus package, it's huge. It's massive. You've read about it in the newspaper, how they're going to pay for it with, Ms. Takaichi saying, we are an administration that is going to be fiscally responsible. This is the hugest stimulus package that Japan has had in 3 decades, except for the COVID relief. But cash handouts, subsidies for electricity, fuel, and gas, support for low-income households and small businesses, these kinds of strategic investments too, in AI and semiconductors, shipbuilding. It's all going on at a very quick clip. So this will happen immediately as soon as the bill passes the upper house. Defense spending, they're trying to push that up. She has accelerated the time for the 5-year plan to be 4 years. And so she's accelerated the 2% GDP of that. And now she and her team are talking about possibly 3% or 3.5%, as has been suggested by some of their partners. I think it's likely to happen because with the United States pulling back on its defense umbrella, Japan does need to pony up a little bit more. You'll note that the defense minister was in where was he? He was in Ishigaki. He was in Yonaguni to talk about missile emplacements and facilitating a restructuring of the island defenses there. So that's also taken up a lot of money as well. So let's see. Let me go through here. Where are we going now, Maya? The China and Japan crisis, travel warnings, seafood bans, and this conversation that Mr. Trump, President Trump, and Xi had this last week. it was initiated by Mr. Z. So this comment that it's an existential threat should China move on Taiwan, that was the essence of the comment by the prime minister. That really upsets China. I mean, beyond what could be envisioned as a reasonable reaction. But they've cut back on food imports. They've cut back on even concert performances and gymnastics. They've cut those in midstream, in fact. So the impact is really huge, and it did, I think, trigger Z to initiate a call to President Trump. That's a big deal. I mean, you don't do that at the drop of a hat. They did have a conversation. It's somewhat confidential. There have been some leaks and some speculations about what they actually talked about. But what we do know is that very soon after that, the prime minister walked back her comment. She said, "Well, it was it's been a little bit off the cuff. It was just said as I was being questioned, but it doesn't change any of the policy." So it's a bit of a walk back without saying, I retract it. But it is a bit of a walk back, and it is, a lot of people were supporting the prime minister because she's got a strong backbone. She stands by her convictions. She says what she feels. She doesn't read from their notes, and she's somebody that's reliable and strong and promoting Japan. And so her approval rating is really high. She could potentially call for a snap election, and some predictions say that the LDP could come out clearly on top with this popularity that she's enjoying now. I don't think that's in the cards. I think the Ishin and with the addition of the 3 new members, I think they're going to reach some sort of a status quo. They'll ride that one out. They'll pass the budget, and then maybe there'll be some fireworks in April, May, or June. But let's take a look at how that goes. Let me see. What else do we have? We've got Taiwan. So there's been a missile deployment in Yonaguni, and the visit by Koizumi as the defense minister. He visited there. It really upset the Chinese, especially as they were coming back from the G20. And Yonaguni is only 110 kilometers away from Taiwan. And so as a defensive line, and that's what Japan seems to be building here, a very strong medium-range surface-to-air missiles on Yonaguni and Ishigaki for potential defense, and just the cost of excursion. If you're going to do that, these are the kinds of things you're going to suffer from. But China, of course, said, this is an escalation, it's a provocation, and as a consequence of that, there's been an increase in patrols that have gone through the Senkakus that have stayed longer. So the Japanese Coast Guard has had to come in and shadow them. There's been, a push and a shove there. Sometimes 3-4 times in a day it's been going on. There are regional exercises going on right now with the Philippines, Australia, Japan, the United States. In that region, there's a lot of tension around, the Second Thomas Shoals and the Senkaku area. This is kind of a gray zone of operations. If there's going to be a conflict, it's probably going to be in the gray zone. That's where you're going to first see this. So this kind of testing of, how quick is the response, how vociferous is the reaction, how committed is, Japan or the United States or the Philippines in responding to these provocations. So it's something to watch very carefully. And at the same time that this is going on, we've got these cyber attacks, the soft underbelly attacking Japan. Osgood Corporation, a large office, household goods, e-commerce, and logistics company, was hit by ransomware. And orders were halted. I think the entire site went down. And it's not just them. Also, downstream clients like Muji and Loft suffered greatly because a lot of their supply is shipped in from Osgood. Asahi Beer Group, Asahi Superdry, also suffered from a cyber attack which destroyed or damaged, retarded at least, logistics and order systems were disrupted. They suffered enormously, maybe 20, 30% of revenue down. They lost personal data of maybe 1.5 million customers, hundreds of thousands of employees. So this ransomware group called Huilin, it's a Russian-linked cyber group, claimed responsibility, but it's unclear if there's some interplay going on with North Korea. It doesn't suggest so much China. So this the controversy going on with the prime minister and the Senkakus, it seems to be a little bit different there. But this is kind of the new wave of warfare. Just this kind of constant, all-encompassing range of possibilities. And it's not like it used to be. I mean, we're not just surfacing this now because it's we're reporting on it, but this is a new venture of how diplomacy and geopolitics is being played. So Japan, as we all know, it's a little bit underinvested in cyber, and their adversaries in China, in North Korea, and in Russia are a little bit more opportunistic. And we all know that North Korea is funding much of its nuclear program through cyber attacks throughout the world, not just in Japan. But it's a cheap way to hurt Japan's economy and credibility in launching these attacks. So we can anticipate Japan coming up with, a little bit more regulation forcing companies to disclose breaches and more budget for cyber defense, in addition to the 2% GDP for defense. So there's a lot more going on. I don't want to get too much into it, but there's much more that I could report on. I want to wrap it up because Maya, you've got another appointment to go to. So let me just close it up here, and maybe we can deal with the other things in the Q&A period. I know everybody has questions on the other things that are going on. I'll try and respond to them as best I can. Back to you, Maya.
Thank you, Timothy. Yes. Okay. So we'll move to the Q&A session. Once again, everybody watching us, we're grateful for you being here. Let us know that you have watched by hitting like or subscribe as well if you haven't subscribed yet, or follow if you are on LinkedIn. Also, let us know your thoughts in the comments, because we appreciate that as well. If you have any questions, let us know what the questions are.
How much time do we have, Maya?
Excuse me. Oh yes, I apologize, but I do need to leave at 9:45 because I'm joining a networking event organized by Richard Wotton. So yes, thank you very much for this, Richard. If you're watching us, I appreciate that as well. And yes, okay, let's move on to the questions and answers. Everybody who has watched us for a while knows who the very first questions on Sunday morning come from. And again, Byron, thank you very much for being always the first to post those questions. And of course, I'll move on through the comments and the questions we have received in chronological order, the order of receipt, or maybe sometimes I'll try to group them by topic. So,
okay.
Yes, moving on, Byron, this is you. Now, Mr. Seko Hiroshige, a former Mighty Minister, and his fellow independent Mr.
Yep.
Mochizuki, they form a group of two LDP-leaning independents who can also add to Ms. Takaichi's majority in the lower house. She appears reluctant to bring them into LDP right away, fearing memory of the so-called funds scandal for which Mr. Seko was expelled from the LDP, however, was re-elected by his constituency once again. Doesn't all this make Mr. Takaichi's position more stable than is generally perceived and likely to last 2 years? Timothy.
Okay, so that's a great, insightful observation. So Mr. Seko was in the upper house. He ran for the lower house. He was one of the central figures in the Abe faction once Mr. Abe was assassinated. He was in that group of 5 that was controlling what was going on. He was part of the group that decided, let's reinitiate this funding, because the money that we receive, I mean, I need it. I've got needs. So he was he was identified as somebody who received money there. He was in the upper house at the time. He was the key representative in the Abe faction for the upper house. He's parlayed that to go into to continue his lead, but I think for Ms. Takaichi, him in particular, bringing him into the LDP fold. He was in the LDP. He's an independent now. Would help bolster the numbers, but I think it would go counter to, her drive to become or to be seen as being clear and clean and dedicated to cleaning up the scandal taint that the LDP suffers from. And you'll remember that Komeito left particularly because you guys aren't serious about cleaning up your act. We're through with you. You say things, but you don't do things, and we still think that it's big business, money politics. That's what the LDP is all about. We're out of here, and bringing in particularly Mr. Seko would diminish that conviction.
Okay, thank you for that. Moving on, the attacks by Chinese government officials appear to be enhancing Mr. Takaichi's popularity in Japan. Hence,
Sure
is
do.
it a counterproductive strategy by PRC?
We'll see. The Chinese ban on fishing and the scallops and the importation was released. It was lifted just less than 2 months ago, just recently. And so what they did was they just reinitiated it. So during that period of the ban, Japan had been developing in Saudi Arabia, in throughout Europe and America, other channels that could take in this surplus of food that they were producing. And so they're going back to that and trying to, take it like water off of a duck. It does hurt, but I think the general population is saying, we don't want to be bullied. Why kowtow to them? What you said is a obvious fact that should China move on Taiwan, it's going to be a pain point for Japan. Why can't you say that? Why is saying that the wrong thing, and why does it generate such a vociferous response? It indicates that you guys are looking for that. You guys are going to do that. So it does make your backbone stand up a little bit stronger, and I think it does benefit the prime minister.
Well, I would say that it benefits the prime minister domestically when it comes to her regards to China and the problem, but also the economy is suffering, right?
It's
Because
hard.
many people have indeed said that, it's really tough and they're going through a kind of crisis because of all those bans on seafood and also other imports from Japan. So I don't think that it's easy to answer this question just, in one line. It's a complex issue, and I think that it will continue to impact Japan and the economy and also the businesses here as well. And there is one more question related to Japan from Byron. It comes as while Japan has rejected the claim in the Wall Street Journal, based on alleged sources in the U.S. State Department, that President Trump advised PM Takaichi to tone down the rhetoric.
Yeah.
It is also a fact that China has gone ballistic rhetorically, with even claims that Okinawa is not part of Japan. Therefore, does the tepid response by Japan to such egregious provocation only reinforce the view that Japan's choices are limited?
Yeah, that's a multi-layered. So Okinawa, yes, Okinawa used to be a vassal state of China. So there's a big affinity between Okinawa. There's a lot of tradition and culture that is shared by China and Okinawa. I grew up on Okinawa, so I'm very familiar with the culture and the distinction between what's going on in Japan proper and what goes on in Okinawa. It is distinctly different. And also, Okinawa was kind of captured by the Satsuma clan. They went in and they took over. They assassinated the leadership, and they overtook the entire country. So what China is saying, there is some truth to that. That you guys came in, you stole that. It was a vassal state of our country, of China, and then you guys came in and you killed everybody, and then you took it over. And then during the Pacific War, look how poorly you treated the Okinawan people, and just that sort of thing. So I don't think it's very helpful. But I think the prime minister, if you don't stand up to it, it's going to recur. It's going to happen again and again, and it's always going to be the economic lever. The Chinese know it's the capitalists, it's the capitalist countries. They love money, so this is how you leverage your influence there. So I think, yeah, I think the tension will continue. I don't think the prime minister is going to back down much on that, even though the economic impact, and it's just not the right time. It's never the right time, but the economic impact is distinctly unfavorable right now with the yen, with the cost of living, with inflation, that sort of thing. But that's that's geopolitics for you.
It is geopolitics, and if I can say something here, so basically toning down the rhetoric on the side of Japan, I don't think that it shows that Japan has limited options. But I would say that this is one of the ways conflict is resolved in this part of Asia as well. Because it doesn't mean that Japan is giving up. It doesn't mean that Japan is telling China, yes, you are right. It is basically a way to cool down the whole thing. And because for China, once again, they have their reasons, for going ballistic, let's say, on this issue. And some of those issues are not necessarily related to Japan. I mean, a lot of that rhetoric is for internal use, for domestic audiences, right? So there are a lot of, once again, this is a complex issue, but I do think that this is not a way of Japan saying we don't have any other options or we have limited options. So yes, thank you for this. And we have a comment. Oh, yes,
can I
please do.
respond to the State
Yes.
Department leaks that the president kind of suggested that the prime minister? We don't know if that's true, but the fact of the matter is that the next day the prime minister did walk back her comment. So I think there's, like you said, it doesn't cost anything to walk it back a little bit. I don't know how much impact it had immediately. We'll know later, and maybe there's insistence for more extraction and more elaboration before they begin, letting the Chinese tourists come back to Japan or buy the seafood. It remains to be seen, but yeah, I think on that particular point, the relationship between Ms. Takaichi and President Trump is so vital, and I think all he would need to say is, it might make sense if you did something like that. Makes perfect sense to me.
Right. Well, for sure, I think that Japan wants to de-escalate this whole thing, and definitely Mr. Takaichi is going in that direction. All right, and we have a comment that follows up on this by directory under dash com, or yes, he says or she says it is not what Trump says, but what the military-industrial complex does, and that's the continued sale of arms to Japan. I think that this is already something that everybody understands, and even without commenting, yes, a lot of people, organizations are aware of the power and the impact of the military-industrial complex.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed for commenting. And okay. So here we've got another comment or question by Manabe-san, which is related to this topic again. Which sector and segments will be impacted by Chinese influence and administration's economic packages? These are not simple politics. Indeed, Manabe-san, it's not just politics. It is much deeper and much broader than politics. Timothy.
Yeah, I think this relates to whoever the question was from earlier, the military industrial complex. Japan
Right.
has seen the benefits of having a robust military industrial complex, the other things that come out of it, Tang juice and saran wrap and all of these other inventions that come out of having a very strong and robust, highly technical military industrial complex. There are other things that happen in the economy. Japan hasn't been able to take advantage of that because of Article 9 of the Constitution. And if you're going to buy a weapon, you want it to be able to do two things. You want it to be defensive and you want it to be offensive. And without that ability to kind of, front load the offensive portion of that, the Japan's, military industrial complex has not been able to get a leg up. So I think that has changed now. And that means that very soon you're going to see, and particularly under Ms. Takaichi's administration, the movement to revise the Constitution to allow for a more dedicated investment. And we're already seeing it now with shipbuilding and AI and the 2%, maybe 3% GDP devoted to defense issues. Excuse me. And just as an aside, the supplemental budget that was just passed in the lower house, that's far larger than the defense budget for Japan. So that means, this supplemental budget, I mean, that is so huge compared to what they're spending in defense spending, which is 2% of the GDP. That means that this stimulus package is greater than that by a magnitude. So the stimulus package, I know it's a separate issue, but it's important to bring home how huge this stimulus package is, how Ms. Katayama must be sweating bullets and saying, look, you want to be fiscally responsible. I'm your Secretary of Finance, and look what you're doing. What? Oh my God. But it is huge. And so I think the population, foreign trading partners are going to be able to see quickly a boost in Japan productivity and diminishing of the inflation, and just hopefully a more robust reaction. Japan needs it. This prime minister needs it, so it's a very big deal. It's separate from the defense issue, but it is somewhat related. Sorry for going too long on it.
No, thank you for that. And another question potentially related to this one by from Hiroaki coming here. Do you have any updates of the implementation of the US-Japan investment deal?
That's got to be from Manabe-san, right?
No, it's from Hiroaki.
Oh, Hiroaki, yes, okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think you asked it last week, and I said I would look into it, and I apologize, I didn't.
Okay, we have to do that and report next week. So Hiroaki-san, apologies for this. Please bear with us. And okay, moving on, we've got another question from Agnieszka Kapavnik. Thank you very much, Agnieszka, for being with us again. She says, can you share more of your thoughts about this Dodge-like institution? What are your opinions on how effective it might be? Does it echo Abenomics?
No, it doesn't equal Abenomics. It's completely different from that. I think it is, and thank you very much. You asked the question last week too, and welcome to the show, and thank you for being proactive. It's riding on what was done in the United States with Trump and with Elon Musk, and the amount of benefit that seemed to have generated. And I think with the LDP, they need to back off from big business and spending money and being really couched close to big blue. They've got Ishin that's coming in and saying, look, you need to be more fiscally responsible. You need to spread the wealth. You need to diminish inflation. Of course, the LDP wants to do that too, but it's got vested interests in big business. And I think this is one way that the prime minister can say, this is an active thing that I'm going to be doing. How money is spent, the stimulus money, where it's going, who spends it, how much you spent, the reports and that sort of thing. It's similar to what happened in the United States with AID. Money was being dedicated to projects and nobody followed up on it. Nobody watched how the money was being spent. And that's the impetus for Doge. And I think the prime minister and several members of her cabinet have acknowledged that the LDP needs to turn a different leaf over, and this is one way to do it. So I think it's different from Abenomics, clearly.
Very different. We didn't have any such an institution during the, well, let's say the administration of Abe-san, right? So
Yeah.
another thing here. Okay, and then, all right, yes, you're very welcome, Agnieszka. And Frederick, welcome, even though you're late. To everybody who joins are late. These briefings stay recorded on LinkedIn and YouTube, also Facebook. So even if you join us late, you can always go back and rewatch or watch the replay from the beginning. So do not worry about that. We know that it's an early time on Sunday morning. And well, for some people or most of the people, actually, it's, yeah, kind of inconvenient. And for you, Timothy, as well, I know
For me
that.
too.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And well, Timothy, actually, I have a question to you, which is about the three people who left
Right.
Ishin. They were expelled and they joined the LDP. So I know that we saying that it is unfair to Ishin is not the right expression here, but still those seats that were won by Ishin as a party are now given, let's say, given to the LDP. So are there any regulations there that the seats should be released and returned to the to Ishin or anything like that, or do they just stay until
No,
the end of the next?
no,
I mean,
absolutely not.
no.
Every member of the Diet is free to choose moving his political affiliation. His constituency might say, hey, wait a minute, we voted for you because you were at the LDP or because you were with Ishin or because you were with Komeito. And he could say, yeah, but I changed my mind. They can only vent their anger verbally, and they have to
Mm,
wait for the election cycle to come around to kick him out or not elect him again. So, no, there's complete free choice there. It's just, it does taint your reputation that you're switching horses, that you said one thing and now you're doing another. And for two of these three, they were on the proportional representation. So only because of their affiliation with Ishin were they elected to be members of the parliament. So that's even that makes that a finer point that yes, they wanted to be politicians. Maybe they had name value. Maybe they published a book, or maybe their father was a rich dentist or something like that. But they didn't. They weren't elected because they pronounced a policy that resonated with their constituency. That's not how they won. They won because they did enunciate policies that were given to them by the party, and the party
yeah.
put them on the list, and they were high enough on the list to be elected based on the popularity of Ishin. So it's a little bit different there.
Right. Well, thank you for that because it's really interesting. It doesn't happen very often that parliament members switch
Yeah.
party and everything, but when it happens, it obviously hurts. Um,
So
yes.
so what they did was they were kicked out of Ishin because they were forming a kind of a kaggle. There were probably more than just the three. There were a larger group. They had ejected Mr. Baba. He was no longer a co-leader. They put in.
Timothy, I lost you.
There we go. I'm back.
Yes, you're back. Okay.
The party had decided we're not going to join with the LDP. We're going to go it alone. And you guys, you're creating too much dissension. So get the hell out of here. So they became independent for the last 3 months. So as independent members, it's easier to switch and to tell your constituency, I was with them, but then I went independent. And now I think it's a better way for me to represent your interests by joining with this big party, and it's going to be better for you. So that's the story they need to weave. Plus,
Right.
they're on TV. They're seen as something of a savior among the LDP. Probably Ishin is having a very different kind of thought pattern there. You know, these three jerks, they show up again, and now the LDP loves them, and they don't love us. They're just being with us for expedience sake. And we didn't even join them in a coalition. We just said, we'll hold hands with you. So it's quite a bit different. And I think the dynamics there must be really, really fraught with issues. So we'll see that come out in real time as we get closer to an election period or a snap election, that sort of thing, and to see how these guys are treated differently from Ishin, or also treated differently from some of the other members of the LDP who don't have that kind of a status.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that. And we also have somebody who may be a first time listener on YouTube, Speaking Truths or the Truth Teller, who says that, well, Sanae Takaichi should be forced to resign because the renewed imperialism of Japan and militarism has no place in 2025. And I think that this comment actually comes to show how part of this, of the rhetoric at the moment on both sides, but especially on Japan's side, is seen by some people, right? Because I have also seen some let's say, opinions shared by Professor Mearsheimer. Sorry, my pronunciation of his name is really not so good, but he is also signaling that we might be seeing, a return to Japanese militarism. And we cannot just ignore these opinions because from the inside it looks, different as it looks from the outside. So, yeah, thank you very much for sharing your opinion on this. Timothy, if you have any thoughts on this, please share them.
I think on the other side of the coin, and I know this is going to make some people angry, why not? Why not go back? I mean, the United States is not going to be supporting Japan as it used to. It's been 80 years since the end of the war. The Constitution has not been revised. The Constitution was given to the Japanese by the Americans. So why the hell shouldn't they? And they do have their traditions. They do have an emperor system. They have, the emperor is the head of the Shinto religion. He is a deity considered by many people. Yes, Japan suffered terribly because of their militaristic tendencies, but I think, and I think there are a lot of other people that also think it's about time for Japan to reestablish itself and to find its core again. I mean, many people think it's just a carbon copy of what's going on in the United States, McDonald's and the consumer ethos and big business and that sort of thing. Japan does have a lot to offer to the world and to the economy. It's done such a magnificent job. At no time in human history has a defeated country done what Japan has done. And also, similar, no victor has treated a defeated country as well as the United States has treated Japan. So it's complex, but yeah, I think there are a lot of people that feel the way that Truth Teller described it, that we have a peace constitution, let's stick with it. But there are a lot of other people that are saying, it's about time for us to stand up for ourselves, to not be pushed around by China and not to rely on the United States. Every time the United States tells us to do something, we kind of do it because our economy is so reliant on them. We need to stand up again. We used to be a huge powerhouse. Let's get back. So there's that voice too.
Right, but I think that on both sides there is some misunderstanding as well, right?
Sure.
And that those misunderstandings they have to be resolved through communication and really open communication. Hopefully that will happen, that will take place, in the near future, so that any potential conflict just disappears before it starts. And yes.
Well, like in many things, Maya, sometimes we don't have the luxury of deciding. Events push us into making a decision that we might not like. So, and I think that's the environment that we're moving into now. That events are going to overtake us and push us into making decisions that we've not made, we've kicked down the road, we haven't confronted, and it just seems that this continuing buildup, and perhaps it will end. Many people are saying the economy of China is beginning to reach its peak. It's starting to go down, and maybe the threat there is going to diminish as a consequence. And the United States is not trading as much with China, therefore allowing China to build up its military presence. So who knows?
Right, we'll continue to observe this, and yes, hopefully, well, I'll never stop, calling for more communication and clearing any misunderstandings, both domestically and externally as well. All right, and yes, Frederick, thank you very much for the, reassurance about my spelling of Mr. Miesha Shamer's name. Apologies for this, please. And then, okay, and we've got one more comment here from Hiroko-san. I just want to say that let's make this the last comment for today, but if you have any others, please leave them there on the platform where we are watching or listening to us so that we can address them next week. And the comment from Hiroko-san is, good morning, I just learned that Japan's defense minister Shinjiro Koizumi has been found to have accepted a corporate donation that exceeded the legal limit according to political fund reports released in Kanagawa Prefecture. Is there any development on this?
I haven't heard anything on that. It sounds like late breaking news. When I was preparing and having coffee this morning in anticipation of this briefing, that wasn't on my radar at that particular time. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. And we'll look into it as well for next Sunday when we are once again here at 8:20 in the morning again. So thank you very much for being with us. And if you find these briefings informative or probably
Send money.
helpful, we don't get any money for that. Yes, Timothy. So just to make it clear, yeah, we do not charge for them. We do not ask for money, but yes, we're here every Sunday morning, and if you find them helpful and informative, just share them with your friends, colleagues, also acquaintances, and maybe your bosses or your employees as well, because we believe that by following the events, you also get to understand how Japanese politics works, and also you develop the skill of anticipation. You can actually anticipate what might happen next year in Japan, because it is important for business and your life in this beautiful country. Thanks again. And well, we're looking forward to having you with us once again next Sunday morning at 8:20 or maybe later.
Thank you,
Okay.
Maya.
No, Timothy, for you it's 8:20, not later.
Yes, it is.
Okay. See you next week then. Thanks a lot and have a great day.
Thank you.